Or, if it was Turkey that was at fault, they would say to Turkey, no funding for all the various things that are being funded today by the European Union and Turkey, which are a lot. So, effectively, there is going to be a very substantial United Nations and European Union role in a settlement. And this is important that people start discussing the modalities of that. There's no point in saying it won't exist, because there can't be a settlement if there are not these elements in it. So we have to start discussing the modalities, the details. I have nothing more to say on that. I do have something more to say on one security aspect, that there is going unquestionably to be, apart from the federated state police forces, which are going to be overwhelmingly, 99%, composed of members of the community to which that federated state is allocated, there is going to have to be a federal police force to cover certain matters like immigration, like Coast Guard duties, these things which almost certainly will be functions of the federal state. That in turn means that there has to be, if there is to be an esprit de corps in that body, it's going to have to be 50% Greek Cypriot, 50% Turkish Cypriot, but integrated. That means that there are going to be a great advantage in them living together. And we have to conceive of the idea of federal areas. For instance, the Nicosia airport area, which is under UN control, is an obvious example of a place where there could be government buildings of the federal state, whereas the present, quote, government or administrative buildings of both communities would serve the two communities, which will have most of the functions under the constitution, which is an extremely devolved constitution. So we will need a few Coast Guard bases around the place, around the shores, the coast. We will need Pila will almost certainly be a federal area. Nobody is going to ask that Pila becomes Greek Cypriot or becomes Turkish Cypriot. It will be a federal area, almost certainly. Kokkinai is another obvious federal area, a traditionally Turkish Cypriot area which is cut off. It would become a wonderful Coast Guard base as a federal area, and the original Turkish Cypriot inhabitants could move back if they wish to do so. And I could go on like this. I've thought it out very carefully. I have a proposal coming with about 6 such federal areas at different places around the country, which would be bases for the police and for the Coast Guard, but would also allow certain citizens who might actually positively want to live together. Such an idea, such a horror, but yet there are Cypriots who actually would want to live together and would allow them to do so through this. So that's something I think that, again, needs to start getting into the dialogue. That's one of the things that we need to start talking about. Then we come to the issue of property, which we all know is under discussion, but we don't know what is being said behind the scenes. It seems to me that one of the great advantages this time round, compared with last time round with the Annan Plan, is that Cyprus is in the European Union, and that means that the hideous detail, the complicated detail, of trying to bind the Greek Cypriots in particular to illegal, bluntly illegal arrangements, illegal under international law, illegal under European law, simply can't stand up. And the amazing thing is that when you put your thinking cap on, in fact it is quite conceivable that you do things in accordance with international and European Union law without damaging the true interests of the Turkish Cypriots. And let me give you an example on property. The Greek Cypriots say, and they are absolutely right, first, that property belongs to the original holder, unquestionably. Actually, Mehmet Ali Talib has accepted that. But he says, you will be compensated. You won't get it back, you'll be compensated. There is, however, a principle which is accepted in every legal system in the world, that you can expropriate for reasons of national interest, the interest of the country concerned. And it is done everywhere. There is no place in the world that it's not done. So what is the interest of Cypriots? The interest of Cypriots is the interest of Cypriots. So a Greek Cypriot or a Turkish Cypriot who lost their home in 1974, and as a result of that went to the other side, and is living now in a property, in a home, which originally belonged to a Turkish Cypriot in the one case, to a Greek Cypriot in the other, could be given the first choice in accordance with that principle. But that principle cannot apply to somebody who was not a Cypriot citizen in 1974. So it cannot apply that principle either to a Turkish immigrant, I don't say settler, a Turkish immigrant, nor to a Pontic Greek immigrant, nor to a British. And the Oram's case is merely in accordance with every principle of international law, and all the fuss that some Turkish Cypriots made about it is absolute nonsense. It is not against the Turkish Cypriot interest. Property which has been taken by British or Israelis or Germans goes straight back to the Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot original owner, should go back, in accordance with the two principles that I've enunciated. So what I'm saying is that in fact, and I'm giving it as an example of how you can get a situation which will do no damage to any Turkish Cypriot currently living in a Greek Cypriot property who left in 74 from the south and went to the north in 75, whenever he or she left, do no damage to them, but will uphold the principles of international law. And of course will do damage to the Turkish Cypriot brokers who on-sold properties, will do damage to the English purchasers, and will give the Greek Cypriots the first say on any property currently lived in by a Turkish immigrant. I'm not saying that this is what they will come up with in the negotiations, because I don't know. I'm not in the negotiations. I'm saying is that now the great advantage of this stage of the Cyprus problem is that everybody has got to take very seriously what international law says. You cannot just say, I want this, therefore it's got to be this. And you've got to find a way of getting around international law. No, there is a way of using international law in order to get just results which are fair to all parties. Similar example is the issue of the many treaties that were made by the quote TRNC, unquote, with the Republic of Turkey. These treaties, 55, 56, I can't remember, but in the 50s anyhow, were detailed in the Annan Plan as being legitimate, in thus legitimating agreements made by the quote TRNC, unquote, which was not recognized by any of the governments which were pressing for these arrangements. Now that is out of the question. It simply won't be done. But that does not mean, it means that Turkey will not have rights within a sovereign state of Cyprus. But it does not mean that the present Greek Cypriot state will exercise those rights. It means that those rights will be exercised by Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots together, with Turkish Cypriots having the right to block anything which they consider unacceptable, because that is the arrangement of the governments.
You mean veto?
Sorry?
You mean veto?
Of course, there is no proposal regarding, there has never been any proposal regarding the governance structure of a federal Cyprus that would not give the Turkish Cypriots, if they're united on something, blocking power within the constitution and the laws. There has never been such a proposal ever put forward, including by the Greek Cypriots. The best that can be done in order to make sure that this is not done in a nationalist spirit, either by Greek Cypriots or by Turkish Cypriots, is through cross-voting, and as you all very well know, Friends of Cyprus has been the most strong supporter of cross-voting, and there are some indications, not proof, but some indications that the two leaders are thinking along those lines. I've said enough. Questions?